I'm going to get personal and coachy tonight, and I'm going to talk about a subject which is this: choosing a better life. Let me ask you some questions. Do you ever feel stuck in life? Like a person or perhaps a circumstance is holding you back? Have you ever told someone that you're getting there? When someone asks you how you are, you say, I'm getting there, right? But you don't know where there is. It's kind of one of those automatic reflexes of like, yeah, I'm getting there, you know. Perhaps you want to make a change, but you didn't know where to start. Now, when it comes to choosing a better life, we all want to improve the quality of our lives, but sometimes it can be challenging to do so because we don't know where to start. So let's kind of come back to intention for a second. For me, I want to be a present, loving, and playful father to my firstborn son, Huxton. I want to be a passionate, romantic, and committed husband to my wife. And to my daughter, who's 3 weeks old, look at this cutie, 3 weeks old on Sunday, I want to be a role model. I want her to grow up knowing who her dad is so that she can be nourished, honored, and celebrated as the woman that she will become. Now, after all, life is just a series of moments. So the question I want to ask you when you're considering how you can choose a better life, how do you want to fill those moments yourself? Now, it's all very well and good me getting all aspirational and saying, well, you know, let's be this fantastic person, right? Let's go ahead and do all this good stuff. But I want to first of all acknowledge that work can sometimes feel like this. Right? Who's ever had a day like that? Yeah, right? It can be very, very, very far from the Zen place that we'd like it to be, right? And if you're a parent, which I know a lot of you are, this is often what parenthood feels like, right? But still, there's a part of me, I can only speak for myself because I can't speak on your behalf. I know that I want to do my best to turn up as the best version of myself. So it comes down to self-care and it comes down to many things, but it's about having a strategy. It's about figuring out how. So amongst all the stress of work and amongst parenthood and life and all the things that are going on, how do you choose a better life? Now, before I go into that, one of the reasons that we can feel trapped is because we believe that we don't have a choice. Who's ever felt cornered in a situation? It's like, well, I've just got to do that because that's the only option, right? You can relate? And sometimes that's subconscious, by the way, and we're just on this autopilot and doing something without thinking about it. But when we want to consciously choose a better life, it really is as simple as ABC. So A is for awareness, B is for belief, and C is for courage. Now, I'm going to talk you through this as a 3-step process, okay? With enough awareness, personal awareness, you can see all of the options that are before you. But it's when you combine awareness with your personal belief, do you actually believe that you can do this? Then you've got a chance of following through. But it's not guaranteed. Who's ever known that you've got the option and you think you can do it, but it didn't quite happen, right? It's only with courage, the third part. With courage, we close off the other doors and we pick the path that will determine our future. It's when we pick that path that literally a future begins, it's created. Courage converts possibility into action. So awareness places the power back in your hands. It's a place where you can assess all the facts and opinions and perspectives without obligation. Have you ever noticed that sometimes when you want to get a certain answer, you'll go to your mate or your family member because you know that they're going to mirror back to you the thing that you want from them? Have you ever noticed that? Maybe it's a blind spot. By the way, we all do that, right? But the thing about true awareness is that There's no obligation in the way that you can choose your option. It doesn't matter what that person is mirroring back to you or their opinion. Awareness is being able to assess it all, and it's almost like a menu at a restaurant, right? And you go, okay, I could do this, could do that, could do that. I know my mum wants me to do that, and my dad wants me to do that, and a bit of peer pressure, but we mustn't feel obliged to have true awareness, okay? And the first distinction when I'm talking about awareness is that if you're on autopilot, then that's not choosing, right? That's not actively choosing in this theme of a better life. So when we're on autopilot, we get similar results. You've got the conscious brain and the subconscious brain, right? Our subconscious brain has mapped out and modeled the world, but it's taken the reins. It's like the autopilot on a plane. The actual pilot's not flying, it's your subconscious. But what if you're not happy with the outcome? What if you're not happy with your health? Are you satisfied with your finances right now? Are you living a life where you truly get to express who you are without apologies to anyone else? Now, to shape your life and the world around you, we need to learn to ask better quality questions. So within that, it could be, what do I need to eat to nourish my body, to take my health to the next level? What one step could I take right now that I'm actually ignoring that would improve my finances tomorrow if I did it? And how can I learn to step into a future that actually motivates and inspires me and leave behind this old version of myself? I like to think that we're like snakes in a way, and we shed our skin, right? This idea of self is something that we can let go of, and we can choose to go forward into something that's new and different. So on this first section of awareness, I'd like to say that in choosing a better life, it's all about having that sense of personal responsibility and adopting that so that you will actively and voluntarily go down the rabbit hole and look in the mirror and say, I'm going to become something greater. It's living truthfully, and it's a knowingness that the choices that you're making with this wonderful menu that is life are wholesome. They're wholesome and true and integral to you and your family and everyone around you. So that's step one. Easy, right? Step two, belief. So we know what the menu is, we know what our options are, we now need to believe it, we now need to have a chance of actually following through. I'm about to tell you a personal story about tragedy and also triumph. And the reason I'm going to tell you it is because it will demonstrate a belief that I adopted that allowed me to move forward in my life. Because beliefs can hold you in the place that you are now, they can even take you backwards, or they can move you forward. So this is me 10 years ago. Now, Joe and Dan are from the Lake District. You may recognize this. This is Lake Windermere in the northwest of England. This is 25-year-old IT Chris with the short haircuts and the glasses before laser surgery, right? Which one do you think's more handsome? I'll leave that to you, whatever. Now, I was brought up in a wonderful family. My parents, Michael and Dorothy Hall, were musicians, right? And they were in the Halley Orchestra, which is an international orchestra based in Manchester in the northwest. And I had a wonderful childhood. It included things like this, going hiking around the lakes and the whales and, being brought up with so much love and home-grounded values that meant that even when I met my wife now, I knew what I was coming home to. I was coming home to the type of family that I was brought up in. I knew what I wanted to create because I was brought up that way, right? So that's just giving you an idea of a good childhood, right? So this is me at 25, but unfortunately, on June the 4th, 10 years ago, this is what happened. I was driving along the road, and I'll tell this story. Driving along the road, going into town to see my girlfriend at 9 o'clock at night. And my uncle calls me on the car phone. And he says, Chris, are you driving? Yeah? Everything all right, John? I need you to pull over. Okay. All right, no problem. Feeling a bit worried, right? And at 9 o'clock at night, he says, Chris, I don't know how to tell you this, but Mum and Dad have been killed in an avalanche in the French Pyrenees, right? Now, in that moment, that's the biggest shock that I've ever had in my life, right? You can imagine how that could destroy someone, right? But I also had an instant realization that I had to immediately step up. Because my uncle was telling me, and I have a sister, and she's in her apartment building and she doesn't know yet, right? So I get in the car again and I drive and I go to my girlfriends, tell her the news and say, look, we've got to go around to Claire's. And so then an hour later, after finding out this news, as 25-year-old Chris, I sit down my sister and I tell her what's happened. Do you know what we said to each other? We looked at each other in the eyes and just in complete sync, we looked at each other and said, God, we were lucky. We were lucky. And we said we were lucky because we appreciated the upbringing that we had. We appreciate the parents of who they were and are and who they'd made us into. And we were very lucky that we had a good relationship with them when they died, right? This is the example of belief, right? Can you see in that moment how immediately my sister and I were able to tap into this inner resource and say, this is the worst news I've ever had in my life, but God, I appreciate that I had a good relationship with them right now. There weren't any fights, and we had this wonderful upbringing. Now, what I want to get across to you here, and I know it's an emotional story, and I'm not here to melt into a puddle, okay, because I've done the work, I'm okay talking about this. But the message I want to give is that when you adopt a belief that is constructive, one of appreciation, one of grounding to everything that you have in your life and you've had in your life, it's something that you can then move forward with, right? Because off the basis of appreciation, I was able to go down a road of then meeting the woman of my dreams, having 2 fantastic children, doing lots of personal development and lots of personal healing, because that stuff needs to be healed. But it's based off a good grounding. Does that make sense? Yeah? So even in a tough situation, like the toughest that could possibly be perhaps, firstly, it's great if you already have that belief, but the inspiration I want to give to you is that it is possible to focus on one aspect, right? It doesn't mean you're denying all the horrible stuff that's happened, but if you can say, there is going to be some part of this I'm going to latch onto that will allow me to move forward, right? That's what appreciation is. That's what a belief can do. Now, let's get a little bit more personal development-y and talk about how we actually use belief in our lives. Are you familiar with this phrase? I need to see it to believe it. Yeah? Have you said it or heard it before from someone else, right? Do you want to do this? I need to see it to believe it, right? When we either say this phrase or hear it or think it, what we're doing is we're waiting for evidence to occur, right? So, for example, in the case of my parents, if I'd said, well, I'm going to just wait to see if life gets better, right? Then I could have been waiting all of my life, and I could have not been standing here trying to convey a positive message, right? So instead of waiting for the evidence to come and allowing chance to happen, what I would like to propose tonight is that actually we need to switch that around. In order to see something, we need to believe it first. So I need to believe it to see it. Let me show you why that's true. There's something in psychology in the brain that's called the reticular activating system, right? And what this is the part of you that's able to focus on something specific. So I want you to do this right now. I want you all to look over here, right? And then as you go around the room, you're going to go from this side to that side, but don't start yet. Quickly follow my arm, and then just look all around the room and look for green, 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 look for green. What did you see? The emergency exit sign? Yeah? I think there's bugger all green, actually, apart from that. Anything else? Any other green? There you go, the headbands. Look at that. The lovely lady's headband right there in the audience. And that's good. So what the reticular activating system does is it focuses on the thing that you've decided you're going to focus on. Beliefs are the same. So another analogy is if you've decided that you're going to get a Toyota Camry and it's going to be white. Guess what you're going to see on the highway every single day afterwards? And you know it, right? You've decided you're going to buy that new car. It's a bloody Camry, right? It's everywhere. It's called your reticular activating system, right? So whenever you're going through something that's either tough or you want to have this breakthrough on, by putting belief first, quite literally, your brain will start to see it, but you have to believe it first. You have to decide. Make sense? Cool. Why else is it true? I need to believe it to see it. It's reclaiming your personal power. Because on the other way, I need to see it to believe it. Who has power in that situation, you or chance? Chance, right? So by flipping it to believing first, you're bringing that all internal and saying, nah, this is what's going to happen. I'm going to start seeing it because of my reticular activating system. I'm going to bloody well believe it. And actually, I'm in charge, right? Cool. That's the second reason. And the third reason is exploration, right? So we've got a lot of business owners, right? I've got many wonderful friends that are fellow entrepreneurs. Now, when I believe that I'm going to do something, I then go and have the conversation with my fellow peer group so that they can give me ideas, right? Real life example for me, I've decided I'm going to build a home recording studio. So I'm talking to Jezza right now, right? He's a little bit of a wheeler dealer, and he all knows how it works, and he's got some great ideas. But can you see how you need to start believing it in order to start exploring, and that happens through conversations or researching something yourself, etc. So those are the three reasons why, if we start believing it first, then we start seeing things. Does this resonate? Yeah? Cool. Okay. So I want to talk about the third step, which is almost the most important one. It's courage, right? So we've got this awareness, we've decided that life's all about this wonderful menu, and I can do all these things, and I listen to facts and opinions, and I'm not going to feel obliged by what anyone says or how it's presented to me. I'm the one that's aware of all these things I can do, and I'm going to be one making the choice. Okay, awareness, tick. I then start believing it, so I can see the things around me, and I've got a chance of following through. But what happens if you're in a low state? Let's imagine you're tired, you're stressed, you're hungover, and maybe you haven't gone for a workout this week, and normally you like to go to the gym 5 times a week. You're feeling shit. Are you courageous in that moment? No, right? And this is the thing. We've talked about both the heart and the head in the first 2 steps, but this third step truly is from the heart. It's from the physical body, right? So whenever you're trying to do something new and something big, put yourself in a peak state. Go for a walk that morning. Have a nutritious breakfast. Have a really healthy week. Maybe don't drink a bottle of vodka the night before you're going to make a courageous decision. Right? And then do it, right? Commit, because it's only when we close off the door and choose the path. That's when future happens, right? So, there's not really much more about courage that I want to say because it is as simple as that, but the responsibility, like all of this, comes down to you, comes down to us. No one else can look after yourself apart from you. So self-care is one of those choices that the power is in your hands to take that forward, okay? And that, my friends, is how choosing a better life really is as simple as ABC. Awareness, belief, and courage. Thank you.